Hello and welcome. This is Pepin from Pepin Reacts, and here I have my best friend. His name is Meader. How you doing, Meader?
I'm here too. Still going strong. Doing great.
See, I might be overexposed, but what's never overexposed is this show. Because this show, yes, everyone knows about it, everyone's watched it, except for me, but it's still great. It's still great. It can't be overexposed. I mean, this is not possible.
It's true.
Last episode, we saw a bit with him as in Walt, rejecting the whole letter, or the what do you call it, the money from the gray matter people. And then Jesse, I forgot what happened with Jesse. He made an offer
Tried to get a
Walt.
job.
Is that right? Oh yeah. And then he got rejected.
Good.
So this episode, it's hard to say where it's gonna go exactly. I think we're getting towards the end of the season. Is this the end of the season? Hold on. No, I think we have another 2 episodes left. Let's see.
Yeah, this is episode 6.
Oh, we got one more left after this, and then we'll be on to season 2. And just for any who's just watching this reaction out of nowhere, this is a spoiler-ish free review. I've seen up to parts of season 2, but that was like when it first came out. Meter seen the whole thing, but we're gonna try not to talk about things that we know ahead of time. Meter, if he does bring up topics, will be very, non-spoilery, right? So you can watch along with us. That's the big point of this. So we're gonna get started here in just a moment. I know you don't watch reaction videos, Meter, but the most annoying thing is when you watch a reaction and then there's somebody else on the other side and they just keep bringing up like stuff that happens in later seasons. Like, oh, well, what do you think about this? How's that going to play in? Oh, no, this explained. It's like, God damn it. Or they've seen the manga and just explain everything.
Fair enough.
Or
Won't tell you what happens in the manga.
God damn it. Sometimes it's like they spoil other shows. They're like, oh yeah, this is like the ending of Breaking Bad, where blah blah blah. It's like, yeah. God damn it, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I just watched all of Better Call Saul.
Oh yeah,
which is a prequel to Breaking Bad. Great show.
Yeah, I know people talk a lot about the actor that plays that guy, Saul.
Yeah,
who does like a dry cleaner, I think.
Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah. I've heard a lot about him, so I'll be interested to see his character. But let's get started here. Okay, that was episode 6 of Breaking Bad. This one, Piano Man. Now, I think this one was... It seems like so much happened in this one. Like, I'm trying to think about all the stuff that happened. I mean, there's a big storyline to it. Like, Walt is trying to... They get back in selling meth, and then they are thinking too small, Walt thinks, so they try to think bigger, and then Jesse gets screwed by one of these contacts, and then Walt gets revenge. And it's also the whole side storyline of him dealing with chemo and this janitor, and then kind of Hank and the family. So that's kind of like the brief overview of the story there. I think there's like a lot more that happened in the episode than there is on paper, if that makes sense. Like, I can think of a couple of scenes, and the scenes were like, I think, very big setup for future things, the way they were worded and everything. What's your general impression, Meter?
Of what?
The episode.
Yeah, great episode. Really progressed. I think it progressed the story much more than a couple of the previous episodes have, where it was a lot of setup, building motivations, building backstories, and character development. This one was a big push in plot.
Right. Yeah. And I guess it's kind of cements Walt in his path, because he can't walk that back. He killed somebody, right? So maybe that's the turning point, is where that he killed somebody. But even more, I'd say he can't come back from attempting to, like, he essentially half blew up a place. Really, it's just a pressure explosion and everything. But even then, that is a huge thing. Also, very, very risky. I don't know. It's kind of weird for Walt to take that sort of risk. I think, because...
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, granted, okay, this is me getting too realistic here, so, slap me in the face, but he's had issues walking and has had a lot of issues just, like, dealing with smoke and kind of gases and stuff. Actually, that hasn't been established, but he's had issues with his lungs. He's got lung cancer. So the fact that he's in an explosion where it's going to be hard to breathe, and he's also around all these like dangerous men with like guns. Of course, he has the other bag with him, but let's say he like got held up there and held up in a way where he just couldn't exit. Are they really going to help him get out of there? They're going to like walk him out, just wait there for an hour while he kind of regains his. That's a realism sort of thing, so I can accept that. But it was a very, very big risk, and it seems like it actually paid off, which is surprising. But this Tuco guy is crazy. He is insane.
Sure.
And so, where do you think a good place to start would be? I mean, can we say much about the fact that they got back into meth? I think we can a little bit, because Walt is kind of deferring to Jesse a little bit more.
I don't know that he is. I think when we're talking about the getting back into meth thing, we're really talking about the relationship between Walt and Jesse in their partnership. And I think a really interesting thing we saw in this episode was that they made it very clear. Walt made it very, very clear right out the gate. I cook, you sell, I'm a silent partner, I want nothing to do with anything. Then he was unable to cook. Jesse was unable to sell in the quantities Walt wanted, so they kind of had to take each other's roles that were very firmly established in the first place. So that's super, super interesting that both had to take on each other's, what are supposed to be their partnership positions.
Yeah, and I guess that's the aspect that Walt's been really lacking. Oh, actually, yeah, that's true, because they both have these strengths and weaknesses. Though Jesse's strength there maybe isn't an extreme strength, because Jesse's very good at dealing with, say, say we're gonna say low-level individuals on a like face-to-face sort of interaction, but he didn't seem to have much tact with the higher-up things. But then again, he was the one that was saying, like, you can't just like walk in there and say, hey, you want some high-grade meth? Like,
Yeah.
This is not how you operate in those organizations. And if you work in a corporation, you get it too.
Jesse didn't like have any air of confidence when he was dealing with Tuco. There was no machismo going on there, and Walt did. And Walt was kind of like matching the craziness. But I think Walt also, when he was talking to Skinny Pete, got a lot more information about Tuco before going in there. So maybe he kind of profiled him and knew how he was going to react and what he needed to do to get the best reaction out of Tuco.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And if we know one thing about Walt, he's very calculative. So the fact he prepared. And I would say, yeah, because Jesse's interaction, like Jesse was scared shitless. And I don't know if this is a framing thing, like if the fact that it's just the way the shots are framed and how dialogue plays out. But Tuco seemed like he was dominating Jesse during that whole exchange. And he was trying to dominate Walt, but it didn't seem to me like it was happening as much. Of course, like when he started pulling out his full punches, it was there, but he seemed to be a bit more uneasy with Walt, likely because he was having that kind of like that hard sort of like fearless, maybe not even fearless, but yeah, kind of fearless demeanor to himself.
I think he fed off of the people that were in his presence and their energy. Walt gave off a very different energy than Jesse did.
And Walt came up with his stage name, or his meth name. So we have Captain Cook and we have Heisenberg. And Heisenberg, as far as I'm aware, is a reference to a famous chemist who, Werner Heisenberg. Let me think about this real quick, because I'm probably wrong with this, because there's one or two chemists it could be. There's Werner Heisenberg, which I think was like a chemist, and then he gets some stuff with quantum physics. But there's also another guy who he was a German scientist, and he worked a lot on toxic gases. I mean, he was like a pure genius, but he was extremely evil. Like he came up with these new formulations of mustard gas and go on into the field, like during the trench wars in World War I, to see how effective they were. So I'm not sure which one it's a reference to. Probably the less bad one. But
Maybe that'll get explained more further down the road, because I don't know. It seemed like he was prepared to answer that question. Like it didn't seem like he just made up an answer on the spot. It seemed like he was ready to answer that question. Who are you? What's your name?
I mean, that's important though. If you're in one of these scenarios, like he would think about that beforehand because he's not dumb. Kind of like Tuco was saying, "Oh, you brought all this meth in here because I stole it from your friend," and blah blah blah. And it's like, no, that's not what I do. I'm too smart for that shit. This is.
He's also lucky that Tuco didn't do what he did with Jesse's meth right out the gate and smash it with the butt of his knife. Could have tried to he could have tried to snort the stuff, and it would have been a completely different situation.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's true. That's true. Got a little bit lucky there. I guess there's some context for that because he already knew the quality of the stuff, and it's like, okay, this is the guy that made it. But yeah, that's true. Also, just glad he didn't actually just drop it on the floor or something. A lot of risks in it, but I guess there's that standard of believability or suspension of disbelief. So they get back into meth, and Walt. So here's my sense of it. Walt was trying to get Jesse to finish up the batch, not because he trusted Jesse, but because he didn't have another choice. He was just too brought down by the chemo.
I think that. Like, imagine if it had been Skinny Pete out there, or that guy that Jesse had cooked with last time. I think Walt would have ever said, "You finish it."
True.
He said it to Jesse because he trusts Jesse. And at one point, as Jesse was still faltering over it, he said, "You can do this." And that was like both a permission thing and like encouragement that Jesse doesn't really get from Walt, who he sees as a mentor. So really, really, really interesting in that regard.
That does make me think, because I don't think we've seen Walt ever call. Okay, maybe he has, but I don't remember Walt really calling Jesse stupid, or if he has, it's been like in a superfluous way. But I think that is Walt's perception of Jesse. It's not that he's stupid or an idiot. It's just that he has unapplied potential. He does not put himself to things, and was Walt's criticism on his report card or paper from back in the day. And that's what he was brought up here. So yeah, I guess he sees potential in Jesse. Just wants it to get acted on, or needs to follow through with it. And so they cook a batch. Jesse goes out and he. So can you clarify this for me? Did he sell an ounce, and the other 15th, 16th? Get sold, or did he smoke it all with other people?
Neither. He didn't sell an ounce. He sold $2,500 worth. Only sold a small amount compared to an ounce, but when you're dealing in tenths, like that's a large amount to sell. That was a large number of transactions of a very small amount.
I see.
So that's why when Tuco was like, "You're short," that's the amount he was short by, was what he had already sold.
Okay. And it was enough quality that even being short that amount was fine. Okay.
Well, I mean, it wasn't. He stole it, but...
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Okay, yeah, well played. So that explains that. So he just didn't sell very much. And that's kind of the issue with that sort of stuff. Like, as far as I'm aware, meth doesn't fetch like a great price on the. It doesn't have like a great ROI like on the small scale side. I mean, really, most drugs don't. People making most of the money with drugs are higher level dealers. Is that something you disagree with?
Yeah, well, it depends how you're looking at it. If you're looking at it as a straight ROI, you're going to make the most money selling in the smaller amounts because you can upcharge. You have to give discounts when you're selling in massive amounts because you're selling wholesale. That's the whole point of buying in bulk, is that you get discounts. That's how Walmart makes all their money. So really, if you're talking about strict ROI and percentages based off of cost of goods sold versus income, your best bet is to sell in small amounts. But if you're talking about quantity of money over period of time, then selling wholesale is going to be much better in that regard. And that's what Walt isn't. Time is what Walt cares most about, not the total potential investment of the product itself.
Right. That's a good point. I guess Walt doesn't really want to deal with the personal side so much. He just wants to be a chemist. So he has an aversion. I would have that same aversion myself. Like, I don't want to be a salesman. I just want to like make the product and someone else sell it, or just find a dealer. And he's got a dealer now, so, or a distributor, which is important. I guess the big selling point. Number one, Walt is crazy, right? And he kind of was getting a little bit of respect for Walt, it seemed, from what Walt did, which is weird. He also gained that respect from Jesse too, I think, a little bit, when Jesse tried to run away. So then again, he beat up Jesse, so maybe that's not completely true. No?
I think Jesse running was showing Tuco Jesse's true colors. He's a coward in his opinion. Tuco's opinion, and that's why he was willing to beat the fuck out of him.
Okay. Let me just think about that for a second. Yeah, you're right, because if Tuco was going to let him go, we're just taking the meth. But the fact that Jesse ran resulted in Jesse getting beat up. So Walt has something that Jesse didn't there. Which is an irony, because Jesse is the one that usually has the social skills here, but Walt had the social skills in this kind of environment.
I don't even know if that was social skills. That was like they were out crazying each other. Who has less to lose?
That's true. I wonder what Tuco brings to the table here. Because I just wonder why all these people were following him. Is it just the money that he brings? Like, how is he competent like this? Is it that he's cutthroat?
Good question.
We got a bit with the chemistry set being, or the mask being investigated. And Hank's getting some clues that he might suspect Walt a tiny bit, or something's a little bit strange. I don't know if that's completely the case, but Hank's giving these little clues and kind of like bouncing off of Walt, because a little too many dead silences. Like, I didn't think Hank was picking up on anything at first, but he seems like he's hinting at something.
I mean, maybe in like a subliminal, like in a subconscious way. I think Hank has so little suspicion of Walt that even though he should suspect him, he still doesn't. I think that's the point of the poker. That Walt was able to 100% bluff him. And like Walt risked everything all in on a handful of nothing. And then Hank was back down, and he's like, all right, I see you're like, he thought he had Walt figured out that, okay, you have something really good. And when it turned out that actually Hank gave up an amazing hand, 3 of a kind with a king, 3 of a kind aces with a king, and Walt had literally nothing, Hank was like dumbfounded. He was like, that doesn't even register in my brain that you could bluff like that. So I think that was kind of indicative of him, like his mindset, that he just 100%, even up to that point, even when he's saying something to Walt, and there's the double entendre meanings there, I don't think Hank is picking up on those himself.
It's almost like there is the, how do I explain this? It's kind of like subliminal or subconscious, like there's like your outward kind of perception, and I've kind of had this myself where like I have like an internal suspicion, but it's not fully realized until like after the fact. Like there's that tiny little feeling like deep and down. But also, Walt was playing with nothing, but Hank had such a strong hand, but he couldn't see it, which I think kind of plays to this. Like if Hank could see his cards and realize what they meant, he could play them in a way that would win the game, but he doesn't see them. And that's kind of the position, because like Walt is not a good liar. There's no part of that scene was like, oh, Walt's a good liar, right? Because he lied to Hank. But Walt in that scene where Hank was asking about the chemistry stuff, Walt had every single sign of being a liar and being invasive. Like Like, I don't know. Like, I think most people would be like, okay, something's up with this. This is a little strange. Like, what is going on here?
And the question is that like a level of him trusting Walt and like, this is my brother-in-law, I trust him? Is there, he just genuinely thinks that Walt wouldn't lie? Is there, he doesn't see that Walt could do something like this? There's a naivety to Walt that that Hank believes in that may not be the truth. Or is it all of those things wrapped up? When he was talking about like, you got to watch these kids, you may think they're fine, but they could be drug dealers. Oh, he's talking to the drug dealer. Like, that was very very clear, his thought on Walt's just a naive guy. He doesn't know anything. Walt doesn't have to do anything to prove to Hank that he's innocent. Hank's already made that decision. And all Walt has to do is just stand there.
That's true. That's true. I wonder what would have to trigger with Hank to suspect Walt. I mean, I guess seeing Walt have like a big bundle of crystal meth or like, $20,000 in his pocket would be something. But I don't know what else could trigger that. I think it was like, I understand Skylar's need to kind of be at these group therapy sessions. I don't think that's really appropriate. This is me projecting again, but if Skylar wants to go to that sort of thing, it's fine. But Walt obviously doesn't want to be there, and I don't think it's right to confront your dirty laundry in front of all those people when you know that Walt is not comfortable with that. Like, it's putting him into a super awkward situation.
You gotta take everybody's needs into account, not just Walt's.
I want to disagree with you. I don't know if I have a good argument, though.
I mean, I don't either. I think Walt is there to support his wife and kid, who clearly get benefit from being there, and I think that's okay. It's an adult. He can make those decisions if he wants to be there or not. I agree. It's very uncomfortable I have no idea how Skylar could have gotten that question out to be like, seemed like a lot of like, I feel statements, and then to be like, am I allowed to directly address something with him? Well, what the fuck? And like, that's brutal. But therapy works for a lot of people. Having a mediator there was something that you had called for the last time that they tried to confront these things. So they're actually kind of using that in this sense. Granted, there were other people there, which makes it way more uncomfortable, but it is kind of a step the right direction, maybe.
Yeah. I think with the mediator, it was a lot better. I still think the issue was, I don't think she should have let that be aired in public. But then again, maybe she didn't know what Skywar's doing, or I don't really know how these group sessions work.
Yeah, because
public pressure might be part of it. Walt came up with a very bad lie. I like nature. Okay, Walt.
It was mostly a lie, but then it showed like the shots of the cactus and the vegetation that he was talking about. So like, in a way, he is just like being out in nature. Just happens to be in an RV cooking meth.
Yep.
So there was that nugget of truth within the bold-faced lie. I think Walt Jr. was really the star there anyway. Yeah, Dad, what's up with that? Fucking classic Walt Jr.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of any other like plot lines that were touched upon. I think there's like a lot of small things. I definitely would not want to deal with meth if that's the clientele I would be with. Like, not judging hardcore, but it just seems very, obvious, very rough. Like, if I was to deal drugs like that, I would want like a very professional clientele. I think it's because my natural position is very polite, and I have a harder time dealing with lack of politeness or that sort of stuff. Like, if you have to get pat down, that's fine. But if the person patting you down has a smile on their face, makes me feel a lot better. But that's just me being a pussy right there.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. I think there are two more really, really key things that happen in the episode. One is Hugo, and the other is Walt's cancer treatment and how that has physically manifested.
So both of those kind of are tied a little bit together. So Walt's cancer treatment is really affecting him. Like he's pissing out oranges, and he is having quite the time in the toilet. That poor toilet. And
It's a vomiting.
yeah, I like that they include that because this is a very, I gotta know how accurate it is, of course, but I assume it's relatively accurate to how cancer actually is. And, you know, I think it's important to kind of show those aspects because a lot of times in TV and media, it's like someone gets cancer or they get some sort of diagnosis, but it has no actual impact on the character besides like, oh yeah, it sucks. But here you actually feel the impact and how much it actually sucks. And I just think, you know, I really don't want cancer. That would be terrible.
The weight loss and then him having to shave his head. But usually when somebody gets to the point of shaving their head, that's like a kind of maintain some control over something you don't have control over. Well, if I'm going to lose my hair, I'm gonna lose it all right now on my terms, not on cancer's terms.
If you're at that point with Walt, would you shave your head?
I'll shave my head right now. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was patchy and gross. Like he needed to shave his head. And
Yeah, I would as well. I think it only makes sense at that point. I wouldn't be happy about it, but I'd be happier with shaved head than like patchiness, because that would just start bugging me, especially if you pull it and starts coming out. That would just be. Ooh, actually, that's probably how they did that. They probably had it like they probably like shaved part of it off and kind of stuck it back on, and that's how they got that effect.
They were talking about, you know, Walt had that whole lesson about small subtle changes, which I think is what we've seen all along so far, is these small subtle changes. This episode was about those big explosive changes, and him shaving his head, that's a big explosive change. Like he's slowly been losing weight. They show that like in really subtle ways, showing him from the back in a way that they haven't before. But then when he shaves his head, very drastic. So I think that's super interesting. And as he's losing these bits of himself in a very physical manner, losing weight, losing his hair, is transforming. Is he losing old Walt? Just becoming this, whatever this new part of Walt is, or maybe this part of Walt is all that's remaining, or something to that effect.
Yeah, I think it's a big question there, because my hypothesis has been that this is more of the original Walt that we're seeing. Like the Walt that we saw in the flashback. Maybe with less wonder in his face. But at the same time, it was a little weird with the scene where he saw Jesse in the hospital. Because obviously, you know, the secondary emotion that happened after was grief, right? Because and you could tell that a lot of this motivation for going after these that supplier, the supplier was revenge. Like he wanted revenge right there. But his initial kind of looking at Jesse seemed to me like more like scientific intrigue. He's kind of just like exploring. It's like, what is this? Of course, a little bit of grief there, but I think the grief emotion kind of came in later, and he was just more just amused.
I'm wondering if it was amusement or if he was thinking about what this means for him before thinking about like how shitty it is for Jesse. And I think one of the big things he was probably thinking about is, okay, so that means we didn't get any money. That might have been a part of, I think that's the very, at least right now, very Walt to look at things. It's how does this affect me? And then thinking about the repercussions and what it means for other people.
There is a bit of an ironic twist to Walt's character. I mean, not terribly. Walt is doing all this for his family, but the people who he's neglecting the most are his family. Of course, Jesse's not part of his family, but here he had some sort of connection to him. And I could imagine if like someone did anything against Walt's family, what would like kill that person? Like at this point, at the very least, I think maybe 2 episodes ago he wouldn't have, but he seems to have actually like come to some sort of, I don't gonna say closure, but acceptance maybe, because trying to blow up like a whole meth gang like that, like I don't know, you're kind of accepting certain risks of killing people right there. So I think that option is now on the table, and it's more likely to be taken, as a result. Not that you would want to do it, but
It's we saw more of Walt's action or inaction causing grief for other people than himself. Like the not wanting to be a part of the selling, pushing Jesse to sell large quantities with a risky, distributor buyer, and Jesse pays the price for it. Not saying anything about the stuff that's stolen from the chemistry lab, and Hugo pays the price for it. Everybody else is paying the price for Walt's action or sometimes inaction.
Ooh, yeah. That's a through line through that whole plot. Yeah, that's completely right.
Almost like he's a cancer. Becoming more cancer than man.
So the whole plot line with Hugo, I keep saying Hugo. Hugo?
I think it's Hugo.
Hugo, okay. Because I know there's like the Spanish pronunciation, which the H wouldn't be, or is that gente? No, gente. So that's
it's
like
pronounced hentai.
Oh yeah, hentai. My favorite afternoon snack. So Hugo was a great guy. He and also one thing I'll note with Hugo is that Walt Jr. would use his full name or his last name, like give him a sign of respect, where no one else really did that. I mean, Skylar didn't have
everyone else was adults. I think that's kind of the big difference. Like the kids would call him Mr. Whatever, and adults would call him by his first name.
Oh, I see. So the level of respect is more of power differential or age differential.
Yeah, I think it's just like that's fairly normal in our society. Just like, Walt doesn't call the principal, Mrs. Whatever. He calls her by her first name, Carmen, I think.
Right. Which I'm still amazed I got that name out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like me remembering it from 10 years ago or whatever it was, or if it's just, I think it's pure luck.
They were immediately like, oh, hi, Carmen, like instantly. And I'm like, what? Is that her name? No, have they even said her name?
I did not expect that. I was, if it is a memory thing, that's amazing. If it's not a memory thing, that's amazing too. Either possibility. The least amazing case is that I watched the episode, yesterday, and I just remember it from that. But that's not the case, because I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Why would I do that anyway? That just spoiled the reaction. But, so Hugo was a great guy, and he was not judgmental. He helped out. He didn't do it in any sort of demeaning way. Now, I still think Walt felt humiliated. Do you get the sense that Walt felt humiliated by that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting because he is accepting help from people. From specific people. He asked for help from Jesse. Jesse offered it, and his gut instinct was to say no. He's like, no, I can do it. And then he thought about it for like a second. He's like, you know what? You do it, Jesse. That's fine. And he accepts it from Hugo. And those are really two of the only people we've ever seen him accept any help. Actually, he did say that Skylar was saying, the doctor's trying to get him to take time off. And Walt's like, actually, I am going to take some time off. So he is accepting help as he gets weaker and weaker in a physical sense.
I think my reaction in Walt's circumstance would be very similar. I would not accept help, but then once I got to the point where he is right there, like I would just be like, okay, yeah, give me help. Just you do it. Because at a certain point, the pain gets too much. And I think I'd do the same exact thing. I'd be like, no, I don't need help. Okay, you do it.
Something else that's interesting about that whole Jesse scene is like Jesse showed a level of competency, right? He asked that Walt had cancer or, saw signs, but in Walt's mind, Walt's like, how'd you know that? He's like, oh, I used the resources available to me. I used deductive reasoning. Then when he's like, what stage are you in? And he's like 4A or whatever. And Jesse knew what that meant. that I think garnered some confidence in Walt that like, okay, when things matter to Jesse, he's retains and he's able to like take information and use it, and that he gave Jesse the benefit of the doubt in being able to recreate the product or finish out the product. But I think without that exchange first, Walt would have had a harder time trusting Jesse to finish out the batch.
I think you're right about that. I think you're right. One thing to add is there's a point you made in the previous episode where you said that a lot of times people will say no to something only to say yes later to give a sense of control. I think that's part what's happening there too. Like he said no, although he knew he couldn't do it right there. Maybe he thought about it a little bit more and the result kind of emerged. But I think he knew he couldn't do it at that moment and was just trying to maintain that sense of control. And I
think that might have been a point you made, but go on.
Hugo, he couldn't really deny the sense of control, or he didn't really he couldn't deny Hugo, but Hugo was just such a champ about it, Like I expected to be something bad with Hugo, but no, there wasn't. Like he did it in the least abrasive, most understanding way that I think would be applicable to Walt's personality. And then, at the very least, Walt does feel like a burden still. But I think he would feel more of a burden if he left that mess in the bathroom than, having Hugo clean it up. And also it's Hugo's job. Yeah. He gets paid for that, so there's that too. So Hugo got busted on a petty crime, which is crappy. Because he had a history. And Hank does not have much empathy for that. But he seems to have some empathy for Walt, although Walt is assumably in his mind guilty of the same thing that Hugo is. So I don't know if that's like a knowledge sort of family sort of thing, or if he just applies his principles differently. I don't know what that is exactly. And
I think, I don't know. I think it's a lot of that like underestimating Walt thing. Which was really driven hard this episode. Like Walt is underestimated, and he's the center, and Hank is circling him, but not even like looking outward while doing a circle around Walt. He'll never look in towards him. Very interesting.
I think one last point I'll make, and see if you have anything to close out. That point would be that I just thought of this. So there's a parallel between Walt and Marie. Marie. So Marie was doing some shady crap with this, shoplifting and everything. We don't know if that's going to extend further on. I assume it's more. I assume it's more of a character thing. Like I assume it extends more than we saw there. Like it's not just a one-off sort of event.
It would be kind of a weird one-off, but
so that is happening under Hank's nose. And as far as we're aware, Hank has no knowledge of that. Or I don't think we can assume that Hank has any idea that he suspects her of shoplifting and doing that sort of stuff. Same is true of Walt. So I think that's kind of interesting because the same blind spot that Hank has towards Walt, he likely has of his wife as well. So
I think there's a bit of a difference there, though, because how would he know about his wife shoplifting any more than anybody in the world would know about that? Like, you don't just walk down the street and you're like, that person probably shoplifts. Like, but I think with Walt specifically, like, that's Hank's job, and that's what everybody says Hank is really good at, is like finding people who are making drugs. And like, he has a whole case open specifically about this, and yet isn't able to see what's very clear right in front of his face.
He hasn't actually been that great at his job so far. He's done some interesting stuff where he's like been able to find drugs, but it seems like he's not that great at. Okay, maybe this is unfair because we're dealing with Walt right now, all right? So we haven't seen him in other cases, but I don't know if he's that great with other cases, or maybe other cases are more obvious.
I think because of his rank, you have to assume that he is. He like heads that division or whatever. So.
Okay. So maybe it's more what we're saying than that it's just a blind spot he has.
Yeah, I think Walt's making him look silly, but he has no reason to suspect Walt that
Yeah.
he knows of. But there's also some blind spot's a good way to put that.
Yeah. I suppose it's realistic too, because I saw this little like documentary on YouTube, and this lady who was on the police force. Essentially, someone got killed, and this lady was on the police force. She was a detective herself, though not like a murder detective. She was brought up as a possible like suspect, and the police force dismissed her completely just because she's one of her own. She wouldn't be doing it. And 10 years later, after some DNA evidence got like found out, they another team was like, okay, let's take a look at this, and then they got her eventually. But I think that can be seen. It isn't even like they're one of our own, like detective wise, but family wise. Like it's hard to kind of apply that same lens to the internal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts to wrap up here, Meader?
No, I think that covers most of the motifs, and I think Walt is becoming more cancer than man.
We'll see if that continues, or maybe he's going to become a dog eventually. Because
Good chance.
it'd be interesting. I don't think we've seen we saw our dog in episode 2. We saw our dog in episode 2. No, episode 1. Yeah, it was Domingo's dog. It was a very cool dog. Why the fuck did I just remember that? But anyway, you guys definitely like this video if you liked the video. If you loved the video, subscribe. Notification bell, that's the thing you can do to notify of when things happen, such as an upload of the video or something. I don't care. If you want to do it, do it. You're at the end of the video. I mean, maybe you love these reactions so much that you want to give me money on my Patreon. If you want to do that, you can do it because no one else have. You can be the first. Also, comment first in the comments, especially if you're second, because that's the best time to do it. You guys have a great day. I react, you react, Pepin reacts, and this is a reaction to Breaking Bad. Peace.